Okay, last but not least, we're on our final video, and now we're going to talk about FIFRA. So we're talking about protecting animals, and now we're talking about the stuff that's killing animals, pesticides. Okay, so FIFRA is the statute, which stands for Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. Started out, I'll talk about the history in a bit. It's kind of a balancing act between people who want pesticides and the greenies, the environmentalists. I can't speak, and it's kind of been modified and changed over time. So first we had 1910 Federal Insecticide Act. Okay, so that was really concerned about fake products, right? So they wanted to protect the farmers from fraudulent and misleading labeling, and didn't really care about environmental concerns. Okay, then what changed in World War II? We had a lot of research and development. Wartime research brought out chemicals that had these insecticidal properties. Um, you know, all of a sudden, our food surplus went way up because the farmers were able to use these insecticides or pesticides that killed the pests, and then our farm yield went way up. And look at the usage went up of from 100 million pounds in 1945 to, three times that in 5 years, to 300 million pounds. And everybody thought like this was great, these pesticides. So 1947, FIFRA was enacted, and it was again more about not so much about environmental stuff, but about poison control. Okay, so they wanted like things labeled and coloring pesticides to make sure that kids didn't eat it, and required these pesticides to be registered, and directions to for poison control kind of things. So look at that. First 5 years, 10,000 new pesticides were registered. So in that point again, we thought pesticides were great. Nobody knew about long time exposure. This is like a mosquito abatement, right? I don't know if they still do this in your neighborhood. Sometimes they do it in my neighborhood. My husband tells the story about how like he and his friends would just like run right after that little truck into smoke because they thought that was fun. Um, so in 1948, there's a Swiss chemist, and he got the Nobel Prize for inventing the pesticide DDT, which I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce. Maybe I am going to pretend. Dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane. Kill mosquitoes. It helped. I mean, it saved lives because there are fewer mosquitoes, you don't get malaria. I have like a bunch of videos, like 3 videos that are in the supplemental materials that I want you to watch. Which I mean, you're just going to cringe with how they were using DDT and how they were um, showing it used with kids and on the kitchen table and all things that we would never ever do today. So so long as that. Well, I don't know. That's 1944. Well, I don't know. The dates are wrong because I said that was 1948. Oh, he got the Nobel Prize in 48, right? Yeah. So it was around before that. But so U.S. Public Health Service warned that there is a health hazard from DDT, and you might also be getting rid of some good bugs along with the bad bugs. There's issues with human health. It might cause cancers, infertility, developmental delay, damage. Okay, so then, as we talked about in the beginning of our semester, rising public concern about this, chemical contamination. Then we have our DDT. We'll watch our DDT videos at the end. Okay, so you may remember that book Silent Spring that we talked about, where pesticide risks were brought to the forefront and people were concerned about these effects on human health. So what does FIFRA do? FIFRA regulates pesticides. Pesticides are designed to kill pests, right? Preventing, destroying, repelling any pests. So pests include plants as well as animals. Okay, so we have different categories of pesticides: herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, rodenticides, right? Plants, bugs, fungi, and rats or mice, rodents. Um, okay, so we have benefits to pesticides: bigger crops, prevention of disease. Uh, then we have the negatives: collateral damage, maybe pesticide resistant pests, right? Bigger ones. So that's our pesticide, positive and negative. Oh, here's our rodenticides. Gross. Chicago, one of the rat cities. So FIFRA requires manufacturers of pesticides to register their pesticides and label them properly before they are made or distributed in our country. Okay, we have an office that tracks this called the Office of Pesticide Programs, OPP. They have to submit testing results, chemical testing results on the effects to the human health and the environment. So what to register, they have to prove that the pesticides do what they say it's going to do, that their labeling complies with what FIFRA says. There's no unreasonably adverse effects on the environment, and while doing the intended function and in common practice, no unreasonably adverse requirements. Okay, so what is an unreasonable risk? They try to see, well, is it cancer causing? Does it have a negative effect on human reproductive or other systems? What is the effect on groundwater, wildlife, and fish? And then there's a balancing thing to see whether this is unreasonable. And this is another one of these like FIFRA videos on giant bugs. So those are all in the supplemental materials. Okay, so the labeling, we have to have things that, tell us how to store it, warnings, directions, all this thing. This is what our discussion board is about, finding these labels. You have to affix warnings and information about them. They always say, like, if what happens if. Okay, there's labeling requirements under FIFRA to prevent injuries to the humans and the environment, and FIFRA has that standard. Okay, it's kind of state law. It's a federal law. FIFRA has that standard, not states. But the labeling rules are confusing. There is actually an additional labeling initiative, which is voluntary, to have more information, like your common names, right? If you say it's bleach rather than like whatever the chemical property of bleach is, people understand what that is. Having an emergency phone number, having first aid recommendations. Again, this is voluntary, not a mandatory FIFRA requirement, but the labeling rules are confusing. Okay, so we have that. Our registration, there's different kinds that the OPP can allow. So we have a conditional registration. So you apply, but your chemical is very similar to something that's already registered. Maybe it's a new use for an existing registration. So you'll get conditional registration if you satisfy those requirements. Now, if there is a notice of rebuttable presumption against registration called an RPAR, if that is issued for a pesticide, there is no conditional registration allowed. Registration, if it is granted, it lasts for 5 years, and they have to then apply for re-registration and burden that, and they have the burden of proving that whatever the testing they didn't pass is still good. Otherwise, they have to retest. Usually, so we have the conditional, usually the other use is general, no restrictions, but if there is a high, a chemical that's more dangerous, there may be limitations. Like, you have something that's pretty toxic, like only a certified exterminator can use this particular pesticide, or you can't use it in certain areas where, near water or, um, too close to people. So that might be a restricted type of use. Um, there's record keeping requirements. EPA has inspection rights, civil and criminal penalties for violation of RFRA are there. So, what else do we have here in our module? We're going to have, you get to watch the rest of those fun videos that I posted. The discussion board is going to be fun. You have to find a pesticide in your house, or if you don't have one in your house, you'll go to a store and find one and talk about the labeling requirements. Let me get back to the module because also the presentation assignment is here. See all of my DDT ones, giant bugs. Okay, so we have a quiz, the FIFRA discussion board, that written assignment, which is assignment 12.2, number 3, and then I have the presentation assignment. So in the presentation assignment, you're going to pick, which you should have done last week, pick a statute that we have discussed or will discuss in the next week or so. And then you're going to look up a case, more recent case on that particular statute, and see how the court has been treating the statute recently, how it furthers the objectives, things that have changed or not, different, how you see that it affects that statute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out a sign up sheet probably in the next module that you'll sign up for a date and time to give your presentation to me. So just something that's mutually convenient. I'll do it. I think I might do it. This was supposed to be on Tuesdays, I think. Maybe I'll do it like Tuesdays, but like during the day, and then maybe Thursday at night. Give those two options for you guys. So that's it for this week. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I will chat with you next week, or you could chat with me in office hours on Wednesday.